Tonight we also continue our pre-election interviews with a candidate for City Council in District 7. The district includes most of Roxbury along with parts of Dorchester and the Fenway. We'd like to welcome one of the finalists in the election next Tuesday, Charles Clemons. Thank you very much for being with us.
It's my pleasure, Chris. And we don't want to forget the South End.
This little bit of the South End
Absolutely.
as well. Talk about the election day itself. I mean, we just went through a preliminary election. A lot of people stayed out of it. And, I mean, what's wrong here? What do we got to do to get people out?
Well, what I've been doing, Chris, knocking on doors. I've knocked on over 6,000 doors. We've made over 20,000 phone calls. My mother is even making phone calls. Our volunteers are making phone calls. We have to inspire the people so they understand how important all elections are, not just this election, but the primaries and, of course, the finals are very important. The people have the power to vote those into election, into the seat, and then, of course, out of their seat. And we also have to remember, Chris, that you don't just have one city councilor that represents you. You have your district city council, but you have 4 city councils at large. So you actually have 5 city councilors that you are there to represent you. And how do you hold them accountable? Real simple. 3 months before election day, you call them up and you let them know that you've been supporting them. Now it's time for them to support you. If they don't support you, then you will stop supporting them. We have to understand the power of the vote.
Well, talking about District 7, you know, if you want to change councilors, well, what's the most important reason for doing that right now?
Well, first of all, District 7 deserves better. We understand that my opponent has been there for 5 years, and as a businessman, I understand when you start a business, the first 1 to 5 years is your trial period. You either show a profit or you don't, and if you don't show a profit, then you need to revamp or get out the business. However, our opponent, my opponent, has been there for 5 years. Where's the progress for everyone? We're talking about an equal playing field. We're talking about a one Boston, and I truly want to see a one Boston, but I don't want to see a Boston separated by racism, discrimination, classism, economics, and education. And of course, we have to look at the public safety when it comes to our elderly. They deserve to be able to walk the streets without any fear. And as your city council for District 7, I will work very hard with the Boston Police Department as a former Boston police officer who walked the beat in beautiful Uptown Grove Hall, who understands true community policing, who had the trust of the people. And it's real simple. Have officers get out of their vehicles, walk the beat, speak the language, love the community, engage the community. Let's build that trust. We can make it happen.
Of course, one problem people can definitely point to is that at least this year, homicides are up in Area B2, which is in Roxbury. And how would a district city councilor or a different district city councilor change that in some way?
Well, let's work with organizations that help out and have a comprehensive plan when it comes to the homicides, like women survivors of homicides. There are in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan over 944 unsolved homicides. That's unacceptable. In Roxbury, we have over 243 unsolved homicides. There's data that's out, but the data is not correct. For instance, if you look at 1979, my uncle, Edward Clemons, was murdered. Unsolved mystery, unsolved homicide. It's not even listed. So we need to make sure that we work with these organizations that support bringing together the proper data and supporting these homicides that are happening in our community. It's not right and it's not fair. $30 million was just given to the OPEC community. Well, what about the homicides, those survivors of homicides, those survivors of unsolved homicides?
By the way, the council just voted to ban replica guns in public places. Do you see that as being a help?
I believe that is being a help. How also we have to understand having body cameras is a help. And I've been working with Shagun and Shakir, who are the co-founders of the Boston Police Action Team. I've been supporting them for over a year. That's a step. However, we have to understand that it's going to take a collective of the community, the police department, government, organizations, and businesses to make it happen.
And getting more diversity in the police department, I think we're losing ground in that. And we keep hearing about veterans' preferences, that there's nothing you can do about that, or is there?
There is something. Fight for it. My son, Charles Clemons, is a veteran. He scored a 97. Plus, he got an extra 10 points on the exam. However, he was turned down as a Boston police officer because he had a moving violation 3 years ago. Police officers should know how to drive fast. However, he's a police officer in LA right now, and he's a veteran. However, my opponent subpoenaed, as he stated, the Olympics. Well, let's subpoena the Boston Police Department records. Let's subpoena the fire department records. Let's not just stop with the Olympics. My opponent has been there for 5 years. For 5 years, you had a chance to subpoena all different departments to make it fair. We're talking about having an equal playing field for our community. And also, as city councilor, I won't have any broken promises. My opponent promised to have a district office. There's a difference, Chris, between a district office and a campaign office.
So you're promising to have one?
I'm going to have a district office, and not only am I going to do that, Chris, 10% of my paycheck I'm going to reinvest back into my community. There's 52 weeks in a year. I will identify a family, an individual, an organization, and a business. Reinvest back into my community, 10% of my paycheck. The Bible talks about tithes. Well, I'm a God-fearing man.
Well, there's a raging conflict out there in the city now about how fast to go, if at all, with expansion of charter schools. What would you like to see?
Well, I don't support lifting the cap. However, I support quality schools for all of our children, whether it's charter, whether it's Boston Public Schools, or even if it's Boston Public Charter Schools. I just came from a forum last night at the Helen Y. Davis Leadership Academy, formerly the Smith Leadership Academy. Beautiful school. Their curriculum is formed for the students that are there. We have to understand that 87% of the students are children of color. So we have to look at the curriculum. Betty Crocker has an ingredients for a chocolate cake, Chris. However, the ingredients is different if you live in Colorado and if you lived in New Orleans because of the altitude. So we have to understand you have the ingredients, but you have to make sure the ingredients is right for the children. And our children are fast-moving, quick thinking. They talk about that our children, especially our young black males, don't have the attention span. But if you put them in front of a television or an Xbox, their attention span is right there and they're fast-moving. So we have to make sure that the curriculum is right for our children.
You mentioned if people want to check in your campaign, what's the best place to go for that?
Stop by 423A Blue Hill Avenue, right in the district. Come on down. We look for your support. Or simply, they can text me at 617-334-4639.
And you're on social media too, right?
Absolutely. And that's how we communicate a lot, through social media.